Welcome to the Seriously Social podcast with your host, Simone Douglas. Today, Simone chats with Robert De Pasquale.
Right, so on today's episode of Seriously Social, the podcast, I am joined by the lovely Robert from Be Able Australia. Robert, thanks for coming along today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Can you just, for my audience who doesn't know you perhaps as well as I do, give us the Cliff Notes version about, how you got into the line of work that you have and why it matters?
Sure. I became a support coordinator because I've have a disability and I've got lived experience, and I've been through the maze of the NDIS. I've seen the good providers and I've seen, some not so good providers, and I've had to navigate and actually try and educate myself about the NDIS, about what's in my plan and so forth, because no one would tell me, or no one has ever told me what was in my plan.
It's a bit of a minefield, isn't it? Like a lot of people I speak to, they're really struggling to get to the bottom of all of that.
That's right. And, with the participants that I have now, I try to explain to them exactly every section of the plan and what they're able to get, and they've never been told before. And once you tell them, then, it opens up a whole new avenue of activities and, product services that they are able to have through the NDIS.
Well, and I think too, there are a lot more things available than perhaps, someone who isn't involved in the NDIS would understand. So it's not just, therapy support services or something. There's a host of different things. What is the whole purpose of the NDIS, at its core from an ethical, change the world kind of perspective?
Well, their number one value is choice and control, and giving the participant the choice and also the control of the services that they receive, the services that they request, and to enhance their life and give them a better life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think choice and control is a really important aspect, I would have thought, even though I don't have first-hand lived experience, but for any human being in control of their own environment and how they're able to live their life would have to be at the top of the tree, yeah?
It would. It is. It should. Well, it should be.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's not.
So if you're looking at someone to work with around, like helping manage your plan, what are some of the questions you should be asking your plan managers or providers to get the best match for yourself?
It should be up to the actual support coordinator or the actual plan manager to give that information.
Yeah.
Because really, as a participant, before I even started Be Able Australia, say 2 years ago, I had no idea what to ask.
Yeah.
I had no idea what services were available to me. So I speak to a lot of people and they don't know what to ask. So it's up to us as service providers to educate the participant to know what they're eligible for.
Yeah.
Because each and every person is a different scenario, different situation. There is no two people, for example, there's no two people with spina bifida who have the same needs.
Ah, okay, yeah. So in the scheme of things, when I'm talking to business owners, one of the conversations that I have is that we have to change the narrative around what inclusivity really is and what accessibility is. What do you think are the important things that business owners should be considering if they want to create an inclusive workplace that's open to people with disabilities that have the skill sets that they need? They just have other issues outside of that?
Just basically be open-minded.
Yeah.
Talk to the person as a person, not as a person with a disability.
Yeah.
Because whether you have a disability or you don't have a disability, you still have needs.
Yeah.
There are some needs that a person with a disability has that someone that doesn't have a disability might have. That's a lot more.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's about communicating and just being open and honest in the conversation.
Yeah. Do you think that the landscape has changed in recent history around those kind of things? Or are we still looking at a lot of people that are a bit closed-minded and missing out on accessing, unique human beings with unique skills that could benefit their business, but it doesn't occur to them to look there?
There are definitely. It is changing and it is getting better, but there's still a lot of improvement within any scope of business. What business owners really need to understand is a person with a disability still has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And also they are proven to be a lot more loyal and they stick around for a lot longer.
Well, and I think, for me, a person is a person first. And I wish that more people could have that perspective. So all of us have, like you said, all of us have our own unique sets of challenges or, idiosyncrasies. And a person who happens to have a disability just has a different set of challenges. That's my perspective anyway.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so what has been your favourite part of having your own business? What's the thing that you enjoy most about it?
Giving back to people. I've gone through the hard times with the NDIs and I know what it's like and I know how frustrating it is for participants. Yeah. So giving back to them and educating them is the best thing that I can do from a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. What's been the most difficult thing during the pandemic in the last year and a half or wherever we're up to now?
Meeting with with participants who have high needs or chronic illness like autoimmune deficiency or disorders. So it's really hard to meet with them face to face. But I've educated them with Zoom that we can easily log on Zoom and have a virtual meeting, and they find it just as good.
Has that been able to mitigate some of the isolation? Because I think, when you would normally have your providers and other people coming out to see you, and obviously if there's an immediate medical need, that's still going to continue during a lockdown or something. But I even know, as for myself, when I'm in lockdown, that felt sense of isolation and not being connected to the people that are part of my community. Has technology been able to offset some of that for people in the disability sector?
For sure. Isolation is a big thing, and it's a big issue. Not only with people with disability, but for anybody living alone. So if we can communicate as much as possible via Zoom, via FaceTime, phone call, text messages, all those little things help, with, just breaking the day-to-day monotony of being alone.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice I've ever been given?
I'll give you some thinking time. I'll share mine. So, I got told a long time ago to do the things that are easy to do and easy not to do. So there's this book called The Slight Edge, and I forget who wrote it, but they talk about successful people always do the things that are easy to do and easy not to do. So you don't get an immediate win from going to the gym today.
Yeah.
But if you keep going, then, you know, in 6 months' time you look back, you're like, oh my God, look at what I've achieved. And in business, I think it's the same. So I always do the things that I dislike doing that I know are getting in the way of my success first thing in the morning, so that then I can get on with enjoying being in business.
Yeah. Mine would be never think that you know everything.
Yeah, very true.
Because the minute you stop learning, you stop growing. So everybody should just keep, an open mind and keep growing and learning, because with the NDIs, things are changing from a weekly basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes daily basis. So there's always new things to learn. There's always disabilities that I come across that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
So I like to educate myself on that person's disability, so I have a bit more of an insight on them. So just continue learning, because the minute you try and stop learning, you stop growing.
You so do. I have a really simple rule, because I like to have coffee with lots of people, and I, get out and about a lot. But so often I'll get people who contact me that want to have coffee. And I said to my team, if there's ever a day that I say having a cup of coffee with that person is a waste of time, you're allowed to slap me, because there's no such thing. So every human being in and of themselves matters, and I'm always going to learn something. So I would totally agree with you. And do you know what? It's always the person that you least expect that teaches you the thing that you needed to know, I find too.
Yep.
Absolutely. So who has helped you the most since you started your business, and surprised you by somehow?
Oh, my parents.
Yeah.
I've always been supportive of everything I do. Dad's he's been in business all his life, so he gives me, little hints here and there, and, try not to burn out.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because within this industry and as a support coordinator, it's so easy to get consumed in your work and not have enough time for yourself. So self-love and, taking time for a mental health day every now and then, just to recharge the battery.
And I think that's a really common theme with my guests, across every podcast, is that we all take that time out. So, take a mental health day, I call it a blanket fort day, but, everyone I talk to that is successful in business, they understand that they need to do that for themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very important.
What would be your number one tip to fellow business owners that are, at that 2 to 3 year mark to avoid burnout? What are some of the things that they can do?
Make sure that you regularly exercise, go to the gym if you can. If not on a daily basis, at least 3 times a day, 3 times a week, sorry. Not 3 times a day, 3 times a week. And just when you're on the phone and it's going to be a long conversation, instead of sitting down in your office, get up, go for a walk around the block
that's really
while you're
good
talking.
Advice. Yeah.
That's a bit of exercise, bit of fresh air, a bit of change of scenery, because if being on the phone for a long time can be consuming, but at least you're doing something physical, which is good. So I often, if I'm on the phone, I put my AirPods in, and just push myself around the block and have a chat,
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because the amount of times I just sit at my desk and can be on the phone for an hour, and I could have snuck in, a 30-minute walk at the same time. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take that advice. On that note, Robert, thanks very much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed the chat. For anyone that's listening to the podcast, you'll find all of Robert's links to his website and contact details in the show notes. So if you know somebody that is involved in the NDIS and could use some help and support, feel free to reach out to Robert. I'm sure I'd be happy to chat to you. Robert, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. I'm just going to stop that recording. Thanks. Sorry for the delay. I kind of thought we'd be 5 minutes behind, but everyone was late today coming in, so it kind of like stuffed us up. So with the podcast, what will happen, we're recording 8 today.
Yes.
So we release one a week. So Marie, one of my staff, will email you before it comes out and let you know, Robert, it's dropping this Tuesday. We'll tag you into it on LinkedIn and places like that, so you'll know when it comes out. But yeah, thanks again for being one of my guests.
No problem. So I'll receive an email shortly.
Yeah, you will do. Absolutely. You
Fantastic. Thanks, Simone.
No problem.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Talk soon. See you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Seriously Social. Check our website for the latest news, show notes, and for details about Simone's latest book, Confident Networker. You'll find us at socialmedia.aok.com.au/podcast.